Even in storms, I will never miss a good fight. Anyway, shouldn't we all be judged by our results? Mine are eternal glory and reddened ash. Blood for blood! Rivers will run red! Only a fool sides against me! My enemies may only rest under my feet.
It's been a week since the new SSR hero Ares was released. He's a Shadow Art tank, and his skills, they make him seem more of like a fighter. Let's take a look at him and analyze his skills. Starting with his ultimate, Simple Lethality, which for 10 seconds consumes 5% of his current health every 2.5 seconds, as well as cuts his defense in half. The good part about that is that reduced defense gets converted into attack for a base of 350%, going all the way up to 500%. The other good news is that he's invulnerable for 1.75 seconds after each health consumption, so there's only a 0.75 second window where he can actually be damaged every 2.5 seconds when he consumes his health. Now looking at his regular skills, he has 2 active and 1 passive. He has a running theme where he consumes his current health and then in return does high damage. So common tactics, besides the health consumption high damage theme, it has another side effect where he can steal the target's crit chance, and then that feeds into his other active skill, Austere Swing, where he needs a higher crit chance to do more crit damage, which is increased by 50%. Now his passive skill, Underworld Balance, that's just there to help keep him alive because he is consuming a lot of health to do his active skills and his ultimate. So that passive skill is there to give him some survivability by recovering lost health or increasing his defense and max health to a certain amount. Now let's look at his iconic weapon skills. So 100 and 300 are the same, with 300 being an improvement on 100, where every time he consumes his current health, he gets more back in the form of a shield. 200 and 400 synergize, where 400 after he releases his ultimate, all of his skill cooldowns will be reset and his attack speed increased. It helps him have a better chance of killing an enemy while his ultimate's 10 seconds are going on, and if that happens, his removed defense will be restored, which helps his survivability. Now 500 is basically a way of increasing his damage for common tactics, which, remember, it just targets one person. And then 600, it's not a super fantastic 600 skill. It's just like 500 where it's improving Austere Swing, and then if you remember, Austere Swing targets everybody in front of him, so it has a better chance of catching multiple targets if he's positioned correctly, and that damage improves that skill. So nothing spectacular, but just all damage improvement. Let's talk about his iconic weapon. So his Chimera stat is Magical Resistance. If you can get his iconic weapon 2 awakened, focus on either yellow or green colored nodes. If you go for yellow, you're going for an average amount of physical and magical resistance. Now my preference is for green because that adds magical resistance onto his already magical resistance from the Chimera stat. So he'll have an extremely high resistance against any mage that tries to take him out. As far as the node attributes, now let's refer back to some of his skills. So he reduces his defense from his ultimate, and he's always consuming his current health from his ultimate and active skills. So, obviously, the stats and attributes you want to go for are more defense and more HP. And he also has that secondary effect from his two active skills that play around with his crit chance and his crit damage. So if you can also get crit chance or crit damage as a node attribute, that would be great as well. Now if you're going for green nodes like I would, if you happen to get a magical resistance node, great, even more magical resistance. So those are some of the recommendations for his iconic weapon. Now you might be wondering, what is his relevance to PvP within the Champions arena? I would say not really relevant. Now, Shadow Arc tanks have not really had a good reputation in PvP in the first place, given that nobody uses Hades or Anubis in high level PvP. And coming from experience of someone who has to fight with 5 teams within Champions Arena, I really don't see any reason to put him in any of the 5 teams. Maybe if I were forced to, I would put him in the same team as Lucifer and make a hybrid Luminarch Shadow Arc team. But some of the reasons why I don't think he's relevant for Champions Arena is high DPS just doesn't cut it anymore. You need other supporting heroes to feed into the meta. Kind of how like Ninhursag keeps everybody alive so that the fighters like Artemis and Oberon can do massive damage under the protection of Ninhursag and Poseidon, whereas normally they would be taken out pretty quick given their glass cannons. Or as everybody already is known for the past almost year now, the Amaterasu Morrigan meta. So yeah, high DPS just doesn't cut it anymore, which seems to be all Ares is about. The other reason being his, as I said before, his iconic weapon 600. It's not a game-changing 600 effect. It just makes one of his active skills do a lot more damage. And going back to my original point, high DPS is not the game changer like it was maybe a year and a half to 2 years ago at the start of the game. So if you're thinking about developing him for Champions Arena, it might work if you somehow overpower him. You're one of like the high spenders, but otherwise keep him within PvE or maybe your local gladiator arena within your server, or mastermind arena. Alright, that's all I had to say about Ares for our analysis. I know I still have to cover who was it? Hanzo, Epona, and Sun Wukong. I'll get around to it, just whenever I get around to it. Alright, see ya.